I am Marcelo Brodsky, a visual artist from Argentina. My generation was totally affected by 1968. I was born in 54, but all the ideas of 68 marked my life very much. The students in the streets of all the cities in the world, in Paris, in Mexico, in Washington, in Argentina, in Brazil, in Italy, in London, everybody was in the street. Most people wanted a better world. A better world was possible. The future looked bright. It looked as something that would be better every day. Imagination to power, more sexual freedom, more political participation of the younger generations in the decisions, in the cultural life. Bye-bye to the old people that were running every country. And eruption of a new generation, of several new generations that were coming with their powers, our ideas, in a way to change the world. That was what the streets of the world expressed in 68. Paris represents the highlight of the European movement in 1968. Imagination to power, the young people of Paris in the streets, the most known reference of 68. The Sorbonne being occupied and Combendit speaking there about the future, a better future. The invasion of Prague in 1968 was certainly one of the main political events of the year. The resistance there of the Czech people against the invasion of the Warsaw Pact, so much photographed, particularly by Kudelka, is an icon of the century. This image with the flags is very colorful, very vibrant, and it shows the young people in the streets resisting. Resistance is one of the key words of 1968. Resistance and a better future. Amsterdam was very important in 1968 because many of the ideas that drove the movement came from the Provo movement that was based in Amsterdam, but also extended later to Belgium. It was a movement of beatniks, hippies, contestataries in general, who started occupying spaces to create art spaces. They were very poetic, very unique, and the Provo movement ideas are in the seed of what happened in 68. So when I thought of this 50 years later, indeed a few years ago, around Mexico, where I was working on the 43 missing of Ayotzinapa that brought me back to Tlatelolco, the big massacre of 1968, October the 2nd, in the Square of the Three Cultures in Mexico City, that brought me to 68. And I wrote, if Tlatelolco, the massacre, had been judged, Ayotzinapa, the kidnapping of 43 students in Guerrero, wouldn't have happened. Many things of 68 acted as shooters of new ideas, antecedents of what is happening today. Although today the future doesn't look brighter, the future doesn't look better. It's an obscure time thinking of what will come. That's why I'm very interested in bringing these ideas of 68 back to the table. So I do that through archival material. I research for long periods of time, each case with photography from photographers, from files, from agencies that put together a whole vibrant essay of what 68 looked like around the world, not only in Paris, which was probably the biggest reference, but all around the world, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in Latin America, and the United States. Concerning Washington, the civil rights movement in 68 was in a peak. In fact, this movement shot in this picture is organized by Martin Luther King only a few months before his shooting, his killing in Memphis, in Tennessee. And it winds up the call of Luther King to people other than African Americans. He's including all poor people. It's a march against poverty, and it includes whites, Puerto Ricans, Latinos, many communities. So it's somehow a moment in which Luther King extends his call to other social groups. The combination of the black and white background of the photograph with the painting, with the selection of texts and messages that I introduced to the image, produce a change in the point of attention where the eye goes. This is my strategy to work with images. And all these elements together, the historic material, the intervention, the text that describes what was happening and what was being asked there, all this together changes the image and transforms it into something else that works with the other images all together in the same, let's say, visual context to deliver a powerful message of what was happening in 68. And today, 50 years later, it brings that back to life. It reinterprets history, and at the same time, the images carry history and are part of the history. Therefore, they become a way of narrating history and narrating what happened to the new generations in a way that they can understand. Today, history doesn't have a visual anchor and a visual element in its narrative. It doesn't work because the new generations don't pay any attention to messages that don't carry images. Therefore, the full power of history is in images, and my work is to develop a language in which visual elements, textual elements, color elements work together to narrate history and to narrate ideas in a different visual way.